Go home. Go back to where you came from. It's all right. You're one of us. Those were words that I heard as a child. I guess that's why I never felt I identified with a particular tribe, state, or nation. From a family separated as refugees during the Ugandan expulsion, we were always reunited with song. Music was my home. At the age of 18, my classical training took me to a progressive arts college called Dartington. It was there I began to understand the wider world and my place in it as a global citizen. Being different was celebrated. I was encouraged to be creative and take a more divergent approach. Here's an example. I often struggled being the brown face in the orchestra, and the audience wasn't much different. So I decided a few years ago here in Nelson to bring an orchestra to the middle of the street. And here's Ruby having a go at conducting with her magic fairy wand. I slept, I dreamt that life was joy. I woke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy. The words of Rabindranath Tagore, who was a huge influencer at Dartington. My talk is about bringing service to the community through the universal language of music. 2010, I decided to create a samba group here in Nelson to uplift the community. There wasn't a single Brazilian instrument in sight and a lot of skepticism to the unknown idea. Around the same time, Derek Sivers delivered a very powerful TED talk on the first follower theory. He shows a video of a concert in a field, and one person gets up to dance and is ignored. And then a second person gets up and it goes from interesting rather than foolish. But then a third person gets up, and in a short space of time, people are running across the field and there are more people dancing than sitting down. Here was my first follower for the samba band. We managed to persuade 16 people to buy instruments, and in a short space of time we were an army of drummers, dancers, brass, stilt walkers, acrobatic children, and circus characters. Within a year, we were asked to play in front of 14,000 people for the Rugby World Cup. The same year, I read a book, Stories of Oppression and Hope. I was particularly drawn to Marsha Wallace's story because she did what so many of us could do. She invited her friends round for a potluck dinner and asked them to donate what they would normally spend in a restaurant. That night, they raised $750. Bob Collins became her first follower, and they now have a charity called Together Women Rise and have more than 500 people hosting and have raised more than 5 million for women in Africa and Asia. It made me think, what could I do here in Nelson? So I set up mindful music sessions where people would come along, enjoy the music, and donate to a small business in the developing world. The power of community here in Nelson during the last 10 years has made over 70 microloans. I don't remember each one, but I will never forget the first one. And it was to a woman in West Africa who wanted to set up a motorcycle taxi service because women were getting attacked on the way home from work. She now has 7 motorcycle taxis and employs 20 people. Traditionally, the borrower pays the money back and then the loan is recycled. But more recently, there's been a pay it forward scheme where the borrower chooses the next recipient. And that way they get the joy and satisfaction of giving and a sense of empowerment. As a teacher, I believe that empowerment should feature in every classroom. When I heard the words "go home, go back to where you came from," I was silent. I was never taught to speak out. It's taken me years to find my voice. I'm still finding it. This isn't easy for me, but I see it as a gift. So I wanted to help people find their voices in the way of singing. So 3 years ago, I set up the Voice Collective, a pop-up choir. No rules, no commitment, no auditions, just a focus on looking after each other, manaakitanga. We went into the first lockdown and people wanted to keep singing, so I thought I could do some live streams. But I didn't have the confidence to do it on my own. So my family helped me out. My son stepped in on the piano. My daughter sang beautiful harmonies. My mum was the purple-haired granny, and even my partner was the crazy potato farmer. We didn't realise how popular it was going to be. We had 2,000 people log in for I Can't Feel My Face. I asked people to send photos and videos, and it was heartwarming to see fathers and teenage daughters singing the song and professional musicians accompanying their young children. It was a time when we were on high alert, but we connected more as a community than we ever did. The second live stream went international, more than 4,000 people. I wanted to praise essential workers, so we used the famous Fatboy Slim number. And I asked people to make as much noise as they could for 2 minutes outside their windows or houses, beeping horns, banging saucepans, blowing whistles, shouting. And what was fascinating was people were not frightened to do it on their own. The third and fourth live streams focused on our homes and our gardens. People were starting to get fed up being at home. So I thought, let's celebrate the place that's keeping us safe and be grateful. So I asked people to dress up at home and have a lovely dinner of soup. But I was also aware that home wasn't a safe place for everybody. And so I asked people to donate, and we managed to raise enough money for 3 safe beds at the Women's Refuge. So by this time, people were starting to get saturated with online events, and I knew my time was running out. So I thought, I've got one more chance, really, and let's make it a special live stream. So we had a virtual pub crawl around Nelson. We were in level 3 by then, but local photographer Tim Cuff was able to video the pubs in town. So we danced between the pubs. We learnt a bit of history when we got to the pub. We sang a pub song, and I even threw in a pub quiz. Somebody from the North Island said it was the best Tuesday night they'd had in years. This is Katie, and Katie's been a recent first follower for the Voice Collective. Last year, we organised a bike rave at the Light Festival. There was no budget, but 60 people turned up, dressed up, on their bikes, which were all beautifully lit. We rode around town to loud music. We rang each other's bells. We sang a bike song. We danced, and there was even a zebra to help us cross the road. It's hugely rewarding when you have a small idea and it's embraced by the community and brought to life. I've been a first follower too. In 2019, for Nelson Arts Festival, I supported a friend with a project called Cultural Conversations. We wanted to take a more transformative rather than tokenistic approach, and we invited members from the Sri Lankan, Bhutanese and Colombian communities to hold informal conversations and performances. After 10 days, the work was far from over. And thanks to another global movement, Makeshift Spaces, we've been able to continue in an empty retail space. I remember overhearing somebody say, "Oh, the trouble is with newcomers, they just keep themselves to themselves and they don't join in with any activities or events." And I thought, well, why does it have to be that way round? And that's what Cultural Conversations is about. For me, innovation has to be about preservation. So I'm going to leave you with a question or two. Would you like to bring more service into your life? It doesn't have to be what Marsha Wallace did or a live stream to 4,000 people. Philanthropy is about giving, but what about giving up? Is there a course or a committee or a board that you could step aside from for somebody else? Is there a story you can listen to from a former refugee or stick up for somebody at the dinner table? Small acts multiplied by thousands can transform the world. Do you believe in the power of community?